So the,
They know I have special needs.
do you want, Frank? Do you want to use my keyboard?
It's all right.
We'll get you a book to prop it up on.
I've got a keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should get one of the hand ones. It fits on your hand like they have in the Apple Store.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. You like slip your hand in like a baseball glove,
Right.
and then it doesn't fall
This fits on my hand too.
You could band down.
Okay, I think we're going to get started. Welcome back. Welcome back to our final panel here at the 2013 CIO Bootcamp. I wanted to, before we jump in, I wanted to mention another thing I forgot to tell you about yesterday. And that's another tool that we have on max.gov. It's called CIOpedia. How many people have heard of CIOpedia? Raise your hand. Okay, how many people have read something on CIOpedia? Okay, that's pretty good. That's really good. Okay, so CIOpedia it's like Wikipedia for a CIO. If you have questions about what the role of the CIO is in cybersecurity, what sort of laws and regulations need to be complied with, whether you are a CIO, you can check, and when no one else is looking if you want. Or if you work in the CIO's office or you work in a different office and you kind of want to understand what is within the jurisdiction of the CIO, CIOpedia is a great place for you to go to do a first search. What we're planning on doing with CIOpedia is I mentioned the knowledge portal yesterday, so we're planning on tying those two together very closely so you have the kind of tactical operational information and you have the underlying policy and laws and regulations information in the same place. Make it fully searchable so then you can read about what you need to know and then also read about how others are actually implementing those laws, regulations, policies, et cetera. CIOpedia, we've been working on it for 2 years, year and a half. It's gone through a couple iterations. There's been lots of people within the council who have worked on it, so a big thanks to all of them. Scott Bernard and Jim and Chuck, the three who are sitting right next to each other, the three musketeers, have been really one of the driving forces behind it. The council is going to be operating it going forward. We're going to be relying on subject matter experts who've helped write a lot of the sections and review a lot of the content. To when we need to update it. Laws change, regulations change, the role of the CIO is going to change, so we want to make sure that CIOpedia reflects those changes as we go forward. So, it's on Max, it'll be on the council site probably by the end of this week. I just got to link the menus so that they all talk to each other, and if you have questions or feedback, we definitely want to hear it, just like with everything else. Okay, so now our last panel is called Ask the CIO. We did Ask the CIO last year, and it was people really liked it. With us today are three members of the CIO Council. Darren Ash, from my left to right, your right to left. Darren Ash, Frank Baitman, and Bernie Mazer. They're from NRC, HHS, and the Department of the Interior. And the idea around this is we're going to talk for a little bit. I got a few questions that I've prepped them for. I might ask them a few I didn't put on the list too, just to see how they react. And then we're going to let you ask questions. What do you want to know about being a CIO, at these agencies? These guys have a lot of experience. And I think they're a great resource for either asking about how they do things well or not well at their agencies, the challenges they have, and some of the kind of their day in and day out struggles. So maybe you guys can do a 1-minute intro elevator speech for each of you, and then we'll jump in with questions.
Sure, maybe this is a good point into becoming a CIO. I think I had a full head of hair and it was black when I started. I've actually been in my position 6 years, which I think these days is probably the longest tenure of all the CIOs on the council.
That's right.
No, that's in human years. Amazing amount of change, but it's been neat to see what has gone on. Actually, one last quick point about me. Many regards, I'm a CIO plus. I have other responsibilities, which adds to the diversity of my responsibilities. Every day is different. I have responsibilities for the administrative activities, human capital activities, and computer security on top of the IT. So like I said, my day is very diverse.
Good set of jobs there. I like that. You and the whole C-suite get together yourself,
Yes.
right?
Wait till you see when we argue.
So this is my 4th year of government service. I have, before this, I was CIO at Social Security, and I spent 6 months as an entrepreneur in residence at the Food and Drug Administration before taking this job. I spent all of my prior career in industry, very large companies that you've heard of like IBM, and very small companies, some of which didn't survive. So I have that wonderful startup experience as well. And I think that proves to be rather helpful dealing with the diverse missions of HHS. So just in a nutshell, I'm sure you're all quite familiar with HHS, but most people in the public are more familiar with the 3-letter acronyms of all of our agencies, like the Food and Drug Administration, National Institutes of Health, Centers for Disease Control, and of course CMS, which is sort of the 800-pound gorilla, just because of all the money that they pay out in Medicare payments. So it's a set of very diverse missions. And we need to find a way in my office of getting those missions moving in the same direction. You don't have that problem, do you, Bernie?
I don't have any problems.
Microphone.
Afternoon, I'm Bernie Mazer, currently the CIO of the Department of the Interior. I am been here for 3 years as the CIO for the Department of Interior. When I reflect that there have been 7 CIOs of the Department of Interior in the last 10 years, I don't know, it says something about me or something about those other guys that, that looked at that. I have been blessed. I am imbued with the concept of public service. When Adam talks about his family and all it is, and his wife, I used to be a teacher once upon a time, so I'm very familiar with the wonderful joys of teaching. My career has progressed, or I don't know if it's progressed, or I worked in the intel world, I worked in the military, I worked in AID, State Department. Prior to coming over to the Department of the Interior, I had a wonderful time in Fish and Wildlife Service. And what was it about, Larry? Dirt and critters. You got it. So I don't work with dirt and critters anymore, but I still have a fond reflection on the wonderful missions within the Department of the Interior. If someone asked a question about enterprise architecture, I know it's like on the shelf with a lot of days for a lot of folks, but I do know when the business reference models were in effect, is that the Department of Interior had the most businesses and all that of any government agency and all that. So it reflects a lot of the diversity of everything like that. So.
Great. So let's start with, we've heard over the last 2 days, we've kind of touched on some of the challenges that CIOs face, but we haven't really outright said it. So what's the hardest part about being a CIO? Either at your agency or at multiple agencies that you've been at?
Want to start? I think part of it is, actually, I think it's changing the discussion about away from systems. I mean, we heard conversations over the last day and a half about box huggers, system huggers. It's true. I mean, that exists, and it's a real issue. It's not about the systems. It's about the information. It's about the mission. And I think it's part of, and really for us, it's having those conversations, having the dialogue, and really convincing people, I'm not after your system. What we are after is trying to improve how we deliver the mission of the agency, but also ensuring that we have authoritative data sources. I don't need 5 different systems developing and maintaining the same type of information. That's a challenging conversation, especially with somebody that's developed and maintained an application for many years. So I think it's real for us. I think it's probably real for everybody here.
Ditto. I think it's a very challenging conversation because people in government, and I know Tina can relate to this, stay in their jobs for a long time. It's very different than my experience in private industry. So you have people who have been doing something for a very long time. They're not so open to those new ideas. They're not so open to change. And in private industry, you see that change taking place day in and day out, and you have to stay relevant as a professional. We need to find a way of making our IT staffs continuing to be relevant, continuing to stay on top of their game, and I think that that's an opportunity for all of us to be change agents in our organizations by staying relevant to the mission.
Yeah, I'll reflect on the fact of we have a myriad of challenges. I'll bound one temporarily by temporal, and that the biggest challenge as a department level CIO is not being fully empowered to have control over IT assets. I have oversight over IT assets. We review everything over $2,500, but then it is about the appropriate direction of where those assets should be, especially in light of strategic sourcing, shared services, the cloud, where we're going with open data, and really coming to the aspects where Darren's talking, maybe alluding to and all that, is how do we deal with data and content? And, agencies haven't really come to grips about what data and content is, and the liberation of data and content from the infrastructure and from the applications. That's one of the things that we're confronting now. We're also a big challenge is with Frank and all that is I won't characterize it as a culture of reluctance to change, but our department has done a lot of wonderful things, and it's built upon a lot of successes. And so it's a little wary of moving into a new world when they say, hey, I've already done this thing wonderfully. I've already done this thing successfully. And so we're not always staying alert to how, like, the private sector is changing, how business models in the state and county local governments are changing, how business models and how government services are delivered, and other international types of governance. We're all comfortable with our success, and we're just, the more we get more comfortable with our success, sometimes we get a lot more adverse to having that tolerance to risk trying something new.
So what kinds of things, just to follow up on that, what kinds of things have you done either within your own teams and staff to kind of encourage that risk-taking? I mean, I think that's what it comes down to, is people are not, for whatever reason, willing to or able to put their neck out to say we should try this differently. So are there stuff that you've done within your agencies that have tried to foster that new type of culture, or are you just kind of beating the drum over and over like we can't continue to do things like we have in the past?
Well, we have talked about, we haven't yet figured out how to do it. We want to create an award for those employees who take risks, measured risks, and single them out as opposed to giving employees awards for 10 or 20 or 30 years of tenure. But some of the things I find most successful is actually getting out in public and talking to employees and letting them talk to the CIO. Those employees who come forward with great ideas love to take those ideas and run with them. So when I did this back at Social Security, I went out to our various regional offices and talked to employees in field offices about what they could do to improve their situation. And the best ideas are obviously where they're closest to the customers. And when you tell those employees, there's an opportunity for you to take that idea and run with it, and you give them top cover so they can go and do it. You see innovation taking place.
I think for all of us, and I'm going to reflect on NRC, part of it is changing the culture and also our behavior. I think you want to obviously spur innovation and risk-taking. We've heard the concepts of failing fast and those types of things. But ultimately for the employee, for the individuals that say, I've got a great idea, I want to try this, and it fails, they need to understand what will happen afterwards. Right. That they're not going to be punished, that there will not be repercussions for their career. One of the things that and again, that comes back to my behavior, but also the folks in the leadership team that work for me, and how we react, how we respond, and how we encourage. I think the other thing that we also have to recognize, and this is one of the cool things I like about the NRC, we're a learning organization. And so when we do fail, when we do have problems and challenges, as an organization, we traditionally, culturally, we step back and say, what can we learn from this? I'm going through this with a project right now that's on the cusp of going live. There's a serious flaw in terms of what they're going to have to do. They've already got the corrective action. We're going to deal with it, and we will go live. But my interest is after that project goes live, let's step back and say, okay, what can we learn so we can apply that to the next project so we don't repeat that mistake?
Okay. Within my team and all that is every 6 months, I'm not espousing a religious point of view or not, but I quote Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, but it's peccat fortiter, which means sin bravely. And that is allowing the team to move away from maybe some aspects of a culture that might be learned helplessness, is that they are empowered to be able to take actions on what they have. We spent a lot of time within the internal team about learning about our individual drivers. We're focusing on strategic aspects of where we are and where we stand in relationship to the organization. We're being informed strongly by the tenets of balanced scorecard and the perspectives of financial management, stakeholder analysis, the learning and growth aspect of the organization, as well as how we look at internal capabilities. We do look at, in terms of, because I am a recovering PMBOKer, is I do like projects, and I like the way that we do durations within a work breakdown structure in terms of what tasks are. So as we're moving forward on a particular endeavor, we get the headlights to show that there might be some danger signals ahead, and that's for us to take either a cautionary turn or to even stop the particular project. There is no condemnation, though, for having a failure or an unrealized full success within what our team is. We're assuming a lot of things that we're doing within the department as far as what we're trying to do with IT transformation, and it's a lot bigger than our head, and so there are going to be some areas where I tell the team it's okay not to, we'll have the high aspirations, but it's okay if we don't hit those goals. And so the team I'm blessed by my team, but we're pretty requisite to saying, okay, let's try this thing, see how it works. If it doesn't work, we can either recalibrate, or just try a different approach.
So a couple of you mentioned kind of how to push that innovation. The digital government strategy, the last milestones were due this past May, and I'm wondering what kind of impact that strategy release and maybe any of the deliverables had within your agencies. And maybe it was good, maybe it was bad, I don't know.
What strategy?
Exactly.
Lisa's gone.
Darren drove her to the metro, actually. So yes, he knows for sure that she's not here.
She did go back to OMB. No, seriously. I think when we saw the digital government strategy, it really, I think for us, for many of us, I would hope, really crystallized or really